Last time we talked about the timeline of ABBA's Voyage reunion, with our main focus on the recording sessions for their album. Based on clues and evidence, we put together a chronology as best as possible. But ABBA actually did record more songs during those sessions, which didn't make it onto the album. Today I want to focus on those outtakes and also add new information to our timeline. So this video is like an appendix to make our chronology even more complete. Hey! So, ABBA recorded 2 more songs during sessions for Voyage. Last time I deliberately decided to only focus on the 10 songs we know from the album. One of the reasons was that we really don't have too much information about those 2 outtakes. But Benny did talk about them in an interview from November 2021.
Were you tempted to put on more songs than those 10?
No, we had actually 12.
What happened to the other 2?
Oh, they're resting.
In the can?
Yeah, we never really finished them. I don't know. We played it all and we said, that shouldn't be in now, and not that one. It's sort of good stuff, but not really finished. It takes more work, for me at least, in the studio.
Unfortunately, as far as I know, this is where all our information come to an end. And by that, I mean information based on legitimate sources. Ever since, the 2 outtakes have been coming up in discussions and speculations, and I've been reading about the apparent song titles and that Benny played one of the songs to Little Boots from the Voyage concert band. However, I have never seen a reference to an actual source, the original statement where Little Boots is talking about it. So if anyone knows if and where this was actually mentioned, please let me know in the comments below. When it comes to the time of when those outtakes were recorded, again, we don't really have any evidence, but there may be at least one indication. And for that, let us go through new details regarding the chronology that we put together, because it might be important to understand the context and fate of ABBA's outtakes. You gave tremendous feedback to our Voyage chronology, and some of you also gave additional information. We now have the confirmation that I Can Be That Woman and Bumblebee were indeed recorded in 2019. More specifically, on that important Winter's Day in January 2019. This was mentioned in one of the ABBA fan club magazines, thanks to Gage DeVell for this additional information. However, another song was actually recorded in 2021 instead. That evidence came from Gareth Jones and Britta Kunz, pointing me to an excerpt of one of the recording sessions that happened that year. I incorrectly identified this snippet as being another recording session for Keep an Eye on Dan, but if we combine the vocals of No Doubt About It with this snippet, it fits. It's fascinating that Björn and Benny also sing on the chorus of this song, but I don't really hear them on the final version. Anyway, that leaves us with 5 songs from 2021 and 3 from 2019, which still fits with Bernard Leur's information. What is now fascinating to see is that most of the slow, thoughtful songs seem to have been recorded in 2019, and the more up-tempo songs with mostly joint lead vocals in 2021. Even more fittingly, I Can Be That Woman and Bumblebee were really recorded back-to-back on that Winter's Day and happen to have so many similarities. Ludius Quasas pointed out how they share the same lower key and sparse backing vocals, and we already talked about the similarities between both songs on our Voyage series. Both ladies give some of their most heartfelt singing on each song. Agneta sings lead on I Can Be That Woman, Frida on Bumblebee, and respectively, the other woman flies in and out with sparse but effective backing vocals. The instrumentation on both songs is also fairly sparse, almost minimalistic, but still majestic sounding. And lyrically, Björn's empathy with the animal kingdom is embedded on one song with Tammy the dog, on the other one with the titular Bumblebee. It all comes together on these 2 songs, and I can very well imagine now what a fulfilling Winter's Day that must have been in the studio and outside in the snow. And even in the final sequence of the album, I Can Be That Woman is the first of 2 songs in a row with Agneta on lead vocals, while Bumblebee is the first of 2 songs with Frida on lead, each followed by an up-tempo track. By the way, I am doing a revised version of our discussion about I Can Be That Woman, which will be back online soon, so keep an eye out on this channel. We always talked about the fascinating variety on the Voyage album in terms of a slow song being followed by an uptempo song on almost every track. Now, with our chronology in mind, again assuming our approximation is correct, the sequence of the Voyage album is even more intriguing. Side A of the album brings together ABBA's very first recordings for Voyage, which are separated and concluded by songs from their most recent recording sessions. Side B also continues that variation, changing from one song to another, first a recording from 2019, then from 2021, and back again. I want to mention that it is likely, of course, that Ode to Freedom was recorded in 2021. We know that it wasn't an easy song to record, and that they had several attempts to reach the final version. Perhaps it started in 2019, and the final version was done in 2021. So where do our outtakes fit in? As I said, we don't really have any evidence. We basically have three options. They were either recorded in 2019, 2021, or maybe one in 2019 and the other one in 2021. One interesting point came from Justin Binley. He referred to Benny's interview from December 2018 when he was talking about the fact that I Still Have Faith in You and Don't Shut Me Down were still unfinished. In that interview, Benny also mentioned that there should be a third song for the show.
What we've done is we recorded 2 new songs. We may do another one when the show is, because this is now the video coming out, then that's the work for the show. And that's going to take another, 6 months, 8 months. So once the show is up and running, the reason we did the new songs was to put them in the new show. Because if you go on the road, you need some new stuff. Now, when this show comes up, these songs will be old, right? Because they've been out there. So we said, well, maybe we need to do another one then for the show. So we shall see. We're working on it. And I haven't talked to Frida and Agneta yet about, maybe we should do one more, I think they'll say, yeah.
We now know that they recorded I Can Be That Woman and Bumblebee shortly afterwards, but generally speaking, those 2 songs wouldn't really fit into a concert environment like that. Justin Bindley may be right in his conclusion that this third song that Benny was talking about may very well have been one of the songs that eventually ended up as an outtake. Sooner or later, we will have the exact information about all songs from Voyage. Carl Magnus Palm has announced and confirmed that he was supplied with some recording data from Bernard Löhr and manager Jörel Hansen. That will be a part of his upcoming book, ABBA on Record, which has been postponed several times but is currently scheduled to be released this year. However, when it comes to those 2 outtakes, Carl Magnus Palm confirmed that ABBA want to keep any insights to those songs secret. So the final question for today is, what will happen to those outtakes? In my estimation, Benny seemed to be quite positive about the songs. He said that they are not finished but needed more work in the studio by him. On the other hand, that interview is from 1.5 years ago, and we know that usually, once a project is over, they move on and don't look back. We know that Universal wants them to do more, obviously, and we know that fans would like to hear more. But all of that is not really an artistic reason to do more or to release those songs. Benny could have easily finished and released those 2 songs by now, in those 1.5 years. Maybe he has finished them. Judging from how ABBA and their releases work, I think there needs to be a reason to put out those 2 songs. There may be one opportunity, a big anniversary coming up, for which those songs may be saved. We recently read from Mia Segalson, manager of ABBA's label, that they are already making plans for ABBA's 50th anniversary next year. Of course, that could literally mean anything. But perhaps one of the plans is that they are saving those 2 songs. In Benny's estimation, at least from 1.5 years ago, the songs seem to be good enough. Perhaps they will be released as part of a new compilation, or even as a special treat on a career-defining anthology, not unlike the Beatles anthology, on which 2 discs opened with 2 new songs. By the time of ABBA's 50th anniversary, they might also want to be ready with the next ABBA arena somewhere around the world. And 2 new songs would give even more attention to that. That's pure speculation, and until then, we can dream and hope and speculate. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Alright, until then, Hej då!